Hello and welcome to another fun-filled edition of Adam's Music Box. And this one really is fun-filled because it's an episode about nothing. And in that tradition, I'm going to ask, what's the deal with Platinum Records? Because it just came to me. Well, it didn't come to me. I read it because sometimes I have no idea what to talk about on this channel. So I think, well, what's the news in music on this day in history? And apparently, on this day in history, they decided to invent the concept of a platinum album. Oof. And that's really it. A platinum album was invented on this day, and I don't even know how many you have to sell to get a platinum album. So, in the spirit of live television or whatever this is, let's look this up. How many albums must you sell to get a platinum? And let's see what the old computer machine says. This feels like does anyone remember Captain Kangaroo? Um, okay, 1 million units or 1,500 on-demand video or audio streams will count as 1 unit. Okay, so 1 million records basically. So it was invented on this day in 1976, and the first album to ever qualify for this platinum record was the Eagles' Greatest Hits Volume 1, the one that went from 71 to 75. Other album, and that sold 38 million units. So 38 times platinum. A second on the list is Michael Jackson's Thriller, which is at 34 times platinum, so 34 million, followed by, and I'm kind of surprised that a sort of heavy hard rock album is on this list, but there you go. Back in Black by AC/DC, 27 million units. I mean, obviously, popular album by a popular band, but interesting to see that. The Eagles appear twice on this list of 20 million or more copies with Hotel California. Then you've got Led Zeppelin 4, and of course, Fleetwood Mac's Rumors. So those are the ones in the category of 20 million or more. But when you go down the list of to 15 to 19 million, it gets interesting as well. So let's take a look at that. Dee-dee-dee. So, in this category, it's a bit wider. There's a bit more albums in there than in the 20 million or above, but it's still a relatively exclusive club. So you've got Legend, which is the most well-known greatest hits compilation of Bob Marley and the Wailers at 18 million, so 18 times platinum. And at the same number, you've got the biggest album by Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction. Journey's greatest hits is next. Again, these are all 18 times platinum. Then No Fences, Garth Brooks's top-selling album at 18 million. At 20 million, 20 times platinum, you've got Come On Over, the breakthrough album by Shania Twain. Then Metallica's Black album, Elton John's original greatest hits compilation from 74, so the first part of his career. Then Boston's debut album, every song was a hit, no real surprise there. Bruce Springsteen, born in the USA, no surprise there. Saturday Night Fever soundtrack, no surprise there. Alanis Morissette's Jagged Little Pill, yep, huge album of the 90s. Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, 15 times platinum, yep. No surprise. Steve Miller's greatest hits, the 74 to 78 edition. Yep, no surprise there. And Bon Jovi, Slippery When Wet. So, I mean, we can look at this and try to determine what trends we can identify in all of this. And nothing immediate sort of comes out. One genre doesn't really feel to be more weighted than another, although the genres that are present tend to be there from the golden age of record sales, which was the 70s through the mid 90s. Because, of course, in the late 90s, Napster comes and the industry never really recovered, even though today most people listen to music legally, meaning they're paying for a subscription to a streaming service or they're listening on the sort of commercial supported version. The idea that we're going to spend big bucks on an individual music collection, irrespective of the format, was something that reached its height between the 70s and the mid 90s. And when you look at the years of these albums, it really reflects that. I mean, let's just go down the list to the albums that sold 10 to 14 million copies. And again, Cracked Rear View by Hootie and the Blowfish, great album, 1994. Then Carole King's Tapestry, 71. Simon and Garfunkel's Greatest Hits, 72, after the first iteration of that band uh, went up because Simon and Garfunkel decided they didn't like each other anymore. Then, with 14 million copies, Bat Out of Hell, 77, Meatloaf, of course, Whitney Houston's 85 debut. As I was explaining on another video, soundtracks were huge in the late 70s and the 80s in particular. So you've got Dirty Dancing in 87, that soundtrack. The most recent that I've clocked on this list, again, right at the era where the music industry was at its peak and about to fall, Backstreet Boys Millennium from 99, another soundtrack, The Bodyguard, Cause I Will Always Love You. Supernatural from 99, Santana again, 99 was in many ways, 99 2000, The Lost Dance for the music industry, the Grease soundtrack from 78, Purple Rain, Prince. Again, this is slightly more recent than the one from 1999, the Marshall Mathers LP from 2000, Eminem, Beatles One, a greatest hits compilation released in 2000, In Sync, No Strings Attached from 2000, Britney Spears, Baby One More Time, 1999. So again, those are really the most recent that you've got on this list. And then you've got, actually, I found one that defied the trend, only one, and this is from 2011, Adele's album 21. And again, by this time, they're measuring in the streams as well. But even when you account for that, most of these are from the 70s to the 90s. I'll read on. We've got this far. 1968, The White Album, 69, Abbey Road, Led Zeppelin 2 from 69, Chronicle Volume 1, essentially the greatest hits compilation of Creedence Clearwater Revival, released in 76, Aerosmith's first greatest hits from 1980, Kenny Rogers' first greatest hits from 1980, Phil Collins' No Jacket Required, 85, Hysteria, Def Leppard from 87, Kenny G, Breathless, 1992, Backstreet Boys debut, 1997, Celine Dion, Falling Into You, 96, Creed, again, one of the later ones, 99 with Human Clay, Nirvana's Nevermind, 91, Pink Floyd's The Wall, 79. I'll read on a little bit more. Well, again, I said this was an episode about nothing, so we might as well have some fun with it. 1985, Billy Joel's combined Volume 1 and 2 greatest hits. Another soundtrack from 97, Titanic, My Heart Will Go On, a song that we've heard many, many, too many times. Linkin Park, okay, again, at the tail end of this Hybrid Theory from 2000, Nora Jones has Come Away With Me, which, if you were in a hi-fi shop in the early 2000s, you've heard that album as much as you'll ever need to hear it. The Beatles, Sgt. Pepper, 67, of course. Houses of the Holy, another Led Zeppelin from 73. The first greatest hits of James Taylor from 76. Billy Joel's The Stranger from 77. The Eagles, again, this time with Volume 2 of their greatest hits from 82. 87, Michael Jackson's Bad. Madonna's first compilation, The Immaculate Collection from 1990. Celine Dion once again, Let's Talk About Love. Eminem, again, one of the very later ones on this list in terms of years. 1992's The Eminem Show. 1998, Kid Rock's Devil Without a Cause. Britney Spears' Oops, I Did It Again from 2000. NSYNC, self-titled from 98. One of the very later ones on this, Confessions from Usher. Wide Open Spaces by the Dixie Chicks from 88. Pearl Jam 10 from 91, Patsy Cline's greatest hits released in 67, Elvis's Christmas album, a budget reissue of the original from 1970, Best of the Doobies, the original half of the Doobie Brothers' career chronicled in 76, the first Van Halen album in 78. Journey's Escape, that one had Don't Stop Believin' and other hits, 1981. High Infidelity, REO's Speedwagon, because I'm gonna keep on loving you. Pyromania, the breakout album by Def Leppard from 83. Can't Slow Down, Lionel Richie's crowning achievement in terms of sales. 83, ZZ Top, Eliminator, because she's got legs. Footloose, the soundtrack from 84. Also from 84, Like a Virgin. Surprisingly from 84, Van Halen's 1984 because you might as well jump. License to Ill, the Beastie Boys breakout from 86. Whitney by Whitney Houston from 87. George Michael's breakout solo album Faith, and also in 87. U2's sort of biggest album, The Joshua Tree, 87. Garth Brooks's self-titled from 89. Please Hammer Don't Hurt Him, MC Hammer from 1990. Garth Brooks in Pieces, 1993, The Best of the Doors, their 85 compilation, Boys to Men 2, 94. I could go on, but the point of this is, will we ever see albums again that are as universally known as they were between that 70s to 90s era, with a bit of 60s thrown in and a bit of 2000s thrown in? And I think not. I think everything now is a bit more segregated and specialized. If you follow someone on social media, you could be part of a whole ecosystem where two or three or four artists are your favorites and you know them intimately. And they're sustained by the clicks and by the merch enough to build a whole career out of it. But the wider public outside of this devoted fan base won't know it. Algorithms can segregate us. Yeah, they can introduce us to new things. Shows like this can introduce us to new things. But the general trend is towards what I call entertainment specialization rather than entertainment universality. We're all now in our own little musical or entertainment enclaves and ghettos. And it takes a lot for us to break out of that. In fact, the thing that sort of causes an artist to become universal is more often than not a scandal or a political statement or something done in society that's apart from their art. So if two people are having a big fight, you're ugly, you're fat, you're having adulterous, blah blah blah. People will pay attention to that because, going back to the ancient days, everyone loves a bit of gossip. They shouldn't, but they do. That's life. But when it comes down to everyone knowing a song or everyone knowing an album, everybody knew I Want to Hold Your Hand by the Beatles. Everybody knew China Grove by the Doobie Brothers. Everybody knew Hey You Get Off of My Cloud by the Stones. Everybody knew Beat It and Bad and Thriller and every other Michael Jackson song. Everyone knew Jump by Van Halen. Everyone knew Pour Some Sugar on Me. Everyone knew Don't Stop Believin'. Everyone knew More Than a Feeling. Everyone knew Don't Go Breaking My Heart by Elton John and Kiki D. I could go on. Everybody knew There's Got to Be a Morning After. I don't know if we're going to have that anymore. I mean, look at the perfect example of this actually is the recent Super Bowl halftime show with Kendrick, and that his group, his fans, his audience, the people that have been following him, they thought it was the best halftime show ever. The people who don't know about Kendrick and haven't listened to him thought that it was one of the worst. Now, what does that say? And some people say it's an age thing, and some will say it's a race thing, and there might be some of that, but I really don't think that's the main thing. I think the main thing is that every artist today, no matter how big, still exists in an enclave. Sometimes it's a small enclave, sometimes it's a large enclave, but an enclave, a ghetto, call it what you will, nevertheless, which means that there's no more middle ground. When Michael Jackson performed at the Super Bowl in the early 90s, everyone knew who he was. Everyone. And most people could say there's at least one, usually more, Michael Jackson songs that I like. Is that true of any artist who's come out in the last 10 or 12 years or so? I don't know. I don't think so. Look at Taylor Swift, the biggest artist, and yeah, she's been around for longer than 12 years. But even so, there's the Swifties who love everything she's done. And yet I meet so many people, I'm gonna be honest with you, particularly women who are, 40 years old or older, they hate Taylor Swift. I'm sure some in that group love her, but I've met a lot that don't. Again, that shows we're in these niches, these ghettos, these enclaves. So if that can kind of apply to the most famous sort of current artist, that could probably apply to all the most recent artists. And I think that going through this futile exercise kind of bears that out. But let me know what you think. As always, like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Take care.